a faraway land.
Hey, fans, how you doing? This is Pragmus. We're finally on YouTube.
I thought it would never happen.
I know it would happen.
Oh, good.
Pretty sure anyway. Well, today we were thinking like really hard what we want our YouTube feature to be, and so there was some argument, some yelling, me clawing his face, him crying, and we came up with Cinderella. Yeah, Cinderella.
Please don't sue us, Disney. We have no money. Thank you.
Now, so we decided to review this film, partly because of its impact on modern animation and filmmaking. It's an amazing film that has left such an impact, and we're here to talk about that today.
Yeah.
So, take it away.
Well, a brief history. The first full-length Disney animated feature was Snow White, and it made a lot of money. However, because of World War II and the fact that the European market was no longer open, Bambi, Fantasia, Pinocchio, most of them are very critically acclaimed, but they were box office bombs at the time, which meant that at the time, Disney was actually $4 million in debt, and they went into another $3 million to make this. This was a huge gamble on their part.
Yes, and the thing is, this was made in 1950, and we owe a lot to this movie. They really took a huge gamble. Walt Disney went all in. If this feature didn't work, then we wouldn't have Disney today, and wouldn't that be a sad world? So everything that we love about Disney, we owe to this. Everything from The Lion King, Frozen, the song Let It Go, and Disneyland. We owe to this feature. We're so happy it worked. So yeah, it has an impact, and it's the quintessential fairy tale. So,
and since Disney decided to remake this again, for some reason, that has...
well, it made a lot of money the first time, so yeah. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right?
I guess not. Since there has been a recent update to this with the new live-action Disney Cinderella, it's high time that we look back and see why this is such a classic. And also that we can then suffer through the sequels to this movie.
So let's begin.
Now, some of the big-name actors that were in this include Eleanor Audley, who plays the stepmother. You might recognize her from her role as Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, and also as the voice of Madame Leota from the Haunted Mansion ride.
It's really interesting to kind of think about this character because they actually gave the evil stepmother a name. Her name is Lady Tremaine, and that's important. We'll go over that later when we get more into characters. What's another good character, a famous character that was in this thing that you can think of?
Well, James McDonald. He does the voice for Jock and Gus and a couple of other people, if I recall. But more famously, you might remember James McDonald as the voice of Mickey Mouse from 1947 until 1977. Well, we also have Verna Felton. You might recognize her voice because she was an elephant not only in The Jungle Book, but also in the original Dumbo. And she does a lovely job as the voice of the fairy godmother. I think the woman just exudes motherliness.
Oh, she does though. Bippity boppity boo. Yeah, just no. It's a really good voice acting job from all of these cast.
Not all of them did a lot of voice acting, but their job here is really quite impressive.
And considering that they haven't, like, modern-day voice actors, if they're in one thing, they're in, like, 50 bajillion, you see them everywhere. But, like, with these voice actors, they were in very few actual productions. And so, honestly, considering what they had to work with, like, they're great. I think that I don't have a problem with the voice acting. The sound mixing's good, it's not distracting, and the music is also phenomenal.
Yes, this is... Actually, the most impressive thing about this is not only did Disney make a whole lot of money with this movie, but he was also nominated for 3 Academy Awards for this picture. And all of them have to do with sound. Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo was nominated for Best Original Song of that year.
And it was also released as a single 3 times.
It was nominated not only for Best Original Song for Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, it was nominated for Best Original Score, and also for Best Sound Overall.
Which is a really impressive thing, and like if you listen to the music, it doesn't really surprise you all that much, because the sound quality is excellent. The way that the music is brought on is not. It adds to the plot. It's not just there just for the sake of music. You know, it has a point. It's there for a reason. You know,
Yeah, I very much enjoyed the music in this, and while some people have compared Disney's Cinderella to a Tom and Jerry cartoon, they're actually kind of right.
The cat chasing the mice, I guess it's good for kids, but like for adults, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we need to entertain the kiddies, and just kind of.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun. It's exactly like a Tom and Jerry cartoon, seeing the mice outwit the cat.
And that was in at the time, so the slapstick kind of vaudeville style of humor, it was in. So. Yeah. You see that with the Looney Tunes as well as like the early Disney cartoons. You see a lot of that slapstick. Yeah.
And also the other thing you see a lot of is the score matching up exactly with the animation. There are mice moving to the beat of the music. There's
let me show you a scene from that. The whole point of the music is to add to what they're trying to portray, and it is very impressive. And yeah, the music is amazing. And the animation styles, let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think about the animation styles?
It's still obvious that there's a foreground and a background, but the backgrounds that they've designed are really well done. You see the grain of the wood, you see the disrepair that the house has fallen into, you can see the overgrowth that has happened in the garden.
Do you really see the disrepair that the house has fallen into? It kind of seems like it's a nice house. I'd live there. It fell into disrepair?
It looks really good for disrepair. I guess they must have Cinderella working overtime for that.
So, let's go into something very interesting that I've noticed with the animation. Is that the backgrounds, they change styles depending on the mood. So like, for example, in the house, you have good lighting on like the villain, especially like Lady Tremaine. Like you have the lighting that makes her look dark and it's just good lighting effects in the bedroom. In addition to that, you also have the effects of the animation when she's working, which is remarkably detailed, and the backgrounds are really spectacular again. And the backgrounds when she's in love, like this image right here, it's hard to see, but if you look really carefully, you can kind of see on there, you can kind of see these like brush strokes and these swirls, very reminiscent of kind of a Van Gogh in this scene. And it shows kind of the more flowy, smooth nature of what they're trying to get you to feel here. It's subtle, but it's brilliant artwork.
Yeah, and these watercolors are absolutely beautiful, and it's a perfect thing for setting up the prince and Cinderella being in love. Yes, they fall in love at first sight, but remember, this is a fairy tale. And like Snow White, it's a story driven by the plot as opposed to the actual characters, and sometimes the characters can suffer for that. There's a lot of people who have pointed out that Cinderella does very little, but the fact of the matter is the moral of the story is more about how Cinderella reacts to her situation. It's not really so much about what she does as a character, so much as the fact that she chooses to be patient, she chooses to be kind, she chooses to remain hardworking and positive, irregardless of what situation she's in. And compared to the stepsisters are very much rude and reactionary, kind of like internet commentators.
Please send your hate mail below. From Pragmus to you. But what I find really interesting about the moral of this is that it's an interesting moral for kids, and it's more applicable nowadays than it was back then. Nowadays, in the realm of the internet, we have instant access to information, instant coffee, what else? What other instant stuff do we have?
Well,
instant noodles,
instant streaming.
I live off of instant noodles. Instant streaming. We have Roombas that clean the floor for you. I mean, like
even banking. You can do banking
instant
from home.
banking. Yeah, it's very like that, and you can buy stuff online. In our instantaneous world, we often lose track of what it is to be more slow-paced, what it is to be a little bit more relaxed, what it is to be patient. Because, I mean, how many times when the internet is like really slow and it takes 3 seconds to load a page, we start slamming our head against the keyboard? I mean, how often has that happened? It happened to me this morning. But like, it's fascinating just kind of to take a look at this and to see this from an interesting perspective. Like, just the moral that has become more timeless as it's gone on, and that's rare to see in a film. I mean, I'm shocked that it works.
Yeah, I'm shocked at how good this film was to begin with. I mean, yes, we like to make fun of it for the fact that Cinderella's a very bland, cut-out character. She doesn't do a lot to initiate anything. However, we can see from the fact that the mice have clothing and the way that the mice react when she's not going to get her way, that the mice really care about her. She's being kind and compassionate to those who are less than her. And it pays off in the end because the mice then go forward and create the dress for her.
And so it shows that kindness and compassion actually are very important and will add and will help you out in the end. It's kind of the whole principle of karma. You do good things happen. It is an important moral of the story, and it's interesting to note. Yeah.
But the problem is, because it's a plot-driven movie, the characters are subservient to it. However, because this is a children's animated feature, it works really well. Yes, it's obvious that the characters are supposed to be archetypes, but that's kind of what fairy tales are. They've kind of become their own archetype. And honestly, looking back at it, they do a really good job of illustrating those archetypes without trying to be too on the nose about it. There is some subtlety to this film. I mean, we can see in Lady Tremaine her nature of being grasping and controlling. We can see that in her character model, in the way she reacts to things happening to her. We can see that the stepsisters are meant to be impatient and rude and not necessarily ugly, but they are ugly compared to Cinderella. You can see in the way that they've been drawn, they're supposed to be a little more angular, lanky, and have you seen the size of those feet?
Yeah, they're like 3 feet long, you know, just...
Yeah, about yay size, you know.
Yeah. How about yay size? Anyway, it's kind of, yeah, they're interesting characters. Their design is funky. There's one scene that just, it's so bad. There's one scene that just made me laugh my head off. It's this scene here.
You did it on purpose. Still, you always
Girls.
It's her fault, Mother.
Above all, self-control. Yes!
Sing, sweet, oh jeez.
Oh, that hurt.
But like, it provides interesting contrast because you see Cinderella singing that song later, and it's very beautiful and soft, and it's not staged. It's just pretty, and you see that, and another interesting contrast between characters and the reactionary and the like setting myself up for greatness because of the mere virtue of me having money and power, whereas Cinderella did it because of her kindness and softness, and I thought that was interesting as well. So
Poor little thing scared to
honestly, the overall enjoyment is good. The production quality is fantastic. I'd say that this movie is a really good one.
I would agree. There are problems, and I mean, people have pointed it out, like Cinema Sins or Honest Trailers. It suffers a little because of its age, but because they made a genuine effort to make it timeless and not dated, unlike
Aladdin, like the Robin Williams references in Aladdin, kind of
yeah,
make it
they
a little
don't.
dated.
Yeah, the comedy in here is not. The comedy in here, yes, it's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon in that there's a little more vaudevillian slapstick
And
to
that
it.
does date it somewhat.
Yes, but it doesn't date it as much as some of the pop culture references you might get from Robin Williams and Aladdin. But still, irregardless of that fact, it's trying to be timeless. It
like
makes
the setting, for example, is timeless. They put in kind of this, I don't know, Victorian, Elizabethan, whatever setting. It looks very Habsburgish, and it's like this idealist fairy tale setting, but because it's kind of in this in this kind of setting, it works. It makes it timeless. You're not in like you're not in a setting that makes it feel dated. It feels like it is a story that knows what it's trying to be and knows where it's trying to be and how it's trying to be.
the thing about it is they never go. They do things in order to make it look like a sort of idyllic European period, but they never go far enough in trying to make it pure to that period in order to date it.
Right.
They don't go full-on giant Shakespeare collar. They don't go full-on giant ruffles and bustles. But there's still enough.
The stepsisters, they have the worst bustles. They bounce so much. I mean, what the heck? I mean,
Are those things made from bed springs?
I don't know. Moving on. Just the setting is just excellent, and the design.
They do enough to make it feel like some sort of European kingdom in a sort of time period without using too much of that period in order to date it. The designs are still kept simple enough and vague enough that you're still able to get something of that.
Okay, so some of the pros you have are you have setting. Setting is excellent. You have the animation. The animation styles and the backgrounds especially are visually appealing.
Yes. Honestly, looking back at it, the backgrounds are really beautiful. I mean, you can look at them for a while and still find details in them. And honestly, the animation itself is dynamic enough that you never feel like it's just a cell on top of a background. They make a genuine effort to make the animation feel alive. Because they make a genuine effort to make the animation dynamic and to make the backgrounds look great, the animation really holds up. Yes, because we have CG now and much better background to foreground animation, it's easy to tell with this film that they have a background and a foreground, and that the foreground cells have been put on top of the background plate.
Mm-hmm.
But the animation is so good and the backgrounds are detailed enough that I don't care. I still enjoy it.
Of course. So the animation is definitely a plus, and the sound. My gosh, the sound.
Oh yes.
Yeah, just sound. Everything about the sound, maybe except for some of this stuff with all of the like talking mice. I think sometimes they talk perhaps a little too fast and a little too hey, it's squeaky, kind of.
And the problem with that occurs because not only has the actor been saying it high, but then they speed it up in order to make it sound even higher. And unfortunately, sometimes words get lost. But since the mice are sometimes using nonsense words that mean nothing, it actually kind of balances out.
But are they nonsense words that mean nothing though? I mean,
Zook zook.
Is it suk suk? I don't know.
It's either suk suk or zook zook.
I don't know. So that's kind of that might be a small little con with the sound, and but like some of the cons of this film are.
Well, I think the first problem we have is that today we have much better children's cartoons. We have a much higher quality and expectations when it comes to children's cartoons nowadays in regards to character. Even the Disney features like Frozen or Tangled, you have a much more genuine effort to make it about the character, to make the characters feel more alive, more dynamic, more of a fully fleshed out person. Whereas in this, the characters are archetypes. I mean, they didn't go so far as just naming the stepsisters evil stepsisters. They gave the stepsisters names. They gave Lady Tremaine a name and a character, even if it is an archetype. The problem comes because nowadays, there's more of an expectation to give a character to a person. And because this film was trying to be a fairy tale and trying to be archetypes, a lot of the characters suffer from that.
Fall a little flat, yeah. Another thing that I've also noticed is, like, for example, when the mice are trying to get the key up the stairs, like it becomes it's just weird because they're struggling to get up just a couple steps, and then next scene, all of a sudden, they're up the stairs. You know, I mean, the magic of what you can do in a jump cut. Anyway, jump cuts are amazing. We love them. They're simple, but as it goes, some of the pacing in some of the scenes is a little off, but it's not too distracting.
Yes, it's still an old film, so it's trying to be slower paced. Because we live in an era past Star Wars, we feel like movies have to be much faster paced nowadays.
Kind of like Hotel Transylvania or something like that, where it's just throwing so much at you and all at once and high energy, high octane, blah, you know, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we miss having a slower pace and being able to just enjoy the sound, just enjoy the background. One of my favorite things that I actually discovered on a second watch is that background. Does that background not look familiar to you?
Is that the generic castle background?
It's Castle de la Background! No, the other scene I really enjoyed, though, is... Oh, it is so violent when they rip off Cinderella's dress, and Lady Tremaine is just watching and just eggs them on just enough in order to get them to rip off the clothes, and then it turns into...
The garden background.
Yes. The garden background is amazing because, in case you've forgotten the beginning of the film, right there,
Still, he felt she needed a mother's care.
that fountain is in this background. Look, that's the same gate and the same fountain as in the beginning of the film, where we saw her having a nice time with her father and the dog and the horse.
Mm-hmm. And then you see kind of like right now, they've taken it and they've turned it into a kind of overgrown area. It still kind of has its own beauty, but it's not as finely trimmed or as finely or as nice per se. Kind of goes with the whole falling into disrepair thing. I don't know. They should get a groundskeeper. I mean, they kind of have a lot of money, so you think that they
Get a groundskeeper?
yeah, something like that.
We have Cinderella. Make Cinderella do it. Cinderella!
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good impression of that. All right, rating time overall. What do we get for the story? Considering the pros and cons you've thrown at it, we give the story an overall score of 83. It's a good story, just very simple, very simplistic, very archetypical.
It makes it a little more difficult to rewatch it as an adult and take the story seriously because it's meant to be a little more simple. It's meant to be a little more childlike. And because of that...
It's not as complex. It's not as deep.
And which means that it's not as great watching a second time because you already know the story.
Well, it is good watching a second time, just not like immediately, like after when you're finished watching it, you don't want to just go watch it again.
Yeah, it's one of those films that's really good on its own, but it's not the kind of film you would want to watch more than once in the same sitting. You enjoy it once and then rewatch it.
Maybe like several months later or a year later or whatever. Yeah. So the story, 83. The characters, I think, was our lowest score. 66.5 is what we gave the characters.
The problem is we have a much higher expectation nowadays when it comes to children animation.
Yeah, with the characters being deep and identifiable and having more personality than just, say, an archetype. Like, she's kind and patient, and Lady Tremaine is and the stepsisters, like, are just the worst, and
the king is just the king is the angry old man, and
he's out of his mind. He's absolutely insane.
What is it with Disney kingdoms and employing really mad, angry, impulsive kings? This is King Trident right here.
Yeah, it's just like Europe. But yeah, so the characters got a 66.5. So
well, the thing is, we have things like Adventure Time nowadays, where the characters, they make a much bigger effort in making them dynamic and interesting.
Or Last Airbender. That was really good. Legend of Korra. Adventure Time. There's just a lot of good shows coming out right now that seem to be really pushing the characters, and I like it. So that's kind of what we've ranked it here. As far as sound and music go, that's our highest score, 97.5 for that.
There's a very good reason why it was nominated for all 3 of the Academy Awards dedicated to sound. Best sound, best original song, best original score. It's because, like Fantasia, there's a perfect marriage between the visuals and the sound makes all of the visuals all the more worthwhile watching.
It augments the whole experience. It's better with than without. And it doesn't distract. The only reason that it's not perfect, in my opinion, is for like those mice. Some of the words they say are a little jumbling, garbling, you know.
I actually have a different reason. I think sometimes it can be too on the nose with its beats and with the fact that it's trying to be like other animation. Other animation at the time, especially Looney Tunes, they orchestrated in order to make the cartoon funnier. You would have a xylophone play when they blinked. You would have a big crash of the cymbals or a big bang on the drum in order to say something violent or something thunderous happened.
It was characteristic to the time period. So.
Yeah, and it's not that problematic. Sometimes it can be a little obvious.
A little on the nose, but yeah, it's yeah. So that's the reason the score is what it is. And one thing that's also really important in any animated film is the animation. If you don't have good animation, you don't have a good film. And we gave the animation in this a 93.
Honestly, yes, some of the character designs can be a little more simple than they intended. But honestly, the animation itself, from a visual standpoint, is quite good. There's a lot of really dynamic scenes with the Duke and the King, which are really quite fun to watch because they're so dynamic and so active.
Very high energy. They don't go really cheap on the animation, and they don't reuse stuff they've already done.
It's impressive all of the detail they put into the background.
Yeah.
It's impressive how many backgrounds they made in order to tell the story. And even more than that, it's impressive how smooth all of the animation looks. And the character designs serve the point of the story.
Everything from the storyboarding to the execution is spectacular and deserves all the commendation it gets. So yeah, 93. As far as like the overall quality of it, I'm not to say 86. There's some styles and some things that are a little bit more old-fashioned, and some of the backgrounds clash a little bit with the animation. And we've already mentioned a lot of the problems that we've seen. So
its characters are archetypes and a little too simple for their own good. And sometimes, because this is like Snow White, it's a story driven by its own plot. It's not driven by the characters, which can make it feel a little more of a passive viewing experience than a dynamic viewing experience. So unfortunately, it's not a perfect film. It's a Disney classic for very good reason. It has amazing music, and it has a very good moral, and it's a great film to watch with It's a great film to watch with children because even as an adult, I'm getting involved in this woman's struggle.
It's a family film. It's a good family film. And so, overall quality, 86 out of 100. That is, yeah, way to go. So, all in all, the average score, I think, stands at an 85.2. And any film over 85, you know what that means?
Pragmus Club?
Pragmus Club! All right, so this film makes the Pragmus Club. In other words, you should watch it. It is a good film. Give it a shot. Give it a chance. Give it a whirl. You're going to like it, and your kids are going to like it. Your family's going to like it. It's good.
And surprisingly, it's actually worth rewatching once. As an adult, I can now appreciate much more some of the beauty of the backgrounds. I can appreciate more
The art.
some of the subtlety of the characters and the way that they've been contrasted and used to reflect the moral of the story that Cinderella represents.
Oh, absolutely. And, yeah, so we thank you very much for watching, and insert catchphrase.